Time for Bob Banter. Now over to Fiona.
What a great start that was. I clicked the wrong intro, but that's okay. Thank you, Sir Peter. Welcome, everybody. How are you? It is the mid-season bye review. I have kind of missed you all. I have missed prepping for a game, prepping for Bomber Banter, and all the content. So that makes me feel like this is on the right track. If you're missing something, then I think that is a sign that it's going well and you're all filling my cup. So how are you, chat? I hope you're all well. I know you have, hello, Kylie. Thank you so much for being here. Commiserations for your loss last week. I know you're a Blues fan, but you're one of the good ones. So thank you for being here. Hello, Dave, James. Love having you here. Thank you. Moby. Yes, always my wonderful reminder. If you have not yet, please, I'm assuming all you legends have, but please, if you're going to be with me and my guests throughout the night, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please do that. And hello to Richard and Mick. Hopefully tonight is going to be a fun one. And with me tonight to go through the wraparound of what we've done so far as a club and how we're tracking, and to have a bit more fun, I have sought the help of someone who you all Bomber fans should really know about. He is one fabulous half of the Don the Stat podcast. He is a genius in my eyes, because when he talks, I feel my head going a million miles an hour and making all the mathematical equations in my head trying to keep up with him. And I feel like he's making me smarter. I feel like both of them are making me smarter. But for now, I just have one half of the duo. It is a very big welcome to you, Ian Hume. How are you, Hume?
I'm great, Fiona, and I'm a bit flustered with that intro there. It's hard to know how to respond to that, but I appreciate your very kind words and for thinking of me to come on this show. As I said, I've said a couple of times now, but I think what you've done and created here is something really special, and I just really appreciate that you've decided to let me be a part of it tonight.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and of course, you're always at the top of my list of people I wanted to absolutely have a part of this, and a special part, and I wanted to wait for an occasion where I thought you'd be perfect at it, and something we could do that was a bit fun and a bit different to just your general kind of going through the season and, ticking off some of the more obvious questions like how have we gone so far and all those things. So basically for everybody in the chat and for everybody who's with us here tonight, we're going to go through, some of the things that are all the burning questions that are on your mind. And also we're going to play some games. Chat, you were going to be, as Hume kind of put it, how'd you put it earlier, Hume? You said it's
I did describe you as the millionaire host. I didn't draw the connection with Eddie Maguire that. I have done that now. So you're going to be that, and the chat's going to be my phone of friends and my 50-50s there. Yes, just to the people in the comments, I am doing this in my garage. My house is not really set up for podcasting, a little bit behind the curtains of Don the Stat. Most of the time I tend to do it on the bed. And because it's an audio only, that doesn't really affect anything. And I don't have to worry about how I look when I do that. But I made sure I had a shower and cleaned up a bit nicely before I jumped on here, especially with the way Fiona carries herself. I didn't think I could look like a scrub and do this show justice tonight.
Well, you look fabulous, and I have already asked you where and how and what that fabulous jumper is, because I absolutely need one, of course, ASAP. I'm sure you're going to get many people commenting about that in the chat, so you can give a bit of a shout out. All right, well, do it now. Where's the jumper from? How do we get it? Is it available?
It was a gift. It's from a company, Homey. I think they partnered with the AFL, and they do it for each of the clubs. And we're very lucky as Essendon fans that their Essendon one looks quite good, because I've looked at some of the others to buy for friends who support other clubs. I feel like they would think I was I didn't like them if I bought them that version. But we've lucked out pretty well with the Essendon version, and it's doing quite a lot of good work, given I am in the garage and I can hear the rain pouring outside as the cool air creeps in. So it's doing its job as advertised.
Fabulous, fabulous. And I can't imagine the brown and gold one of this design would be overly appealing, to be quite frank.
No, I don't think brown and gold works well on anything. Let's be honest.
That's very, very true. All right, well, let's just not waste any more time here, me, and let's start, okay? So basically this, everybody, chuck your questions into the chat. There are some mechanical, technical things that we'll get to later that I have to do behind the scenes that will take me a hot minute. So Hume can kind of take the floor and answer some of those questions as I'm doing the technical things and need a hot second. But all right, so let's just start with a bit of a broad question before I get to some of the more specific things that I don't think people would ask, but I really want to know. How do you think we've gone so far to date? What things have pleasantly surprised you? What things have disappointed you that you kind of thought we'd have under control by this part of the season in 2025 in this part of our evolution?
Look, I don't think that anyone can really sit here and overall for the season say that they're happy with how the season has gone. I think I went before doing this, again, a bit behind the curtains. Normally I'm very well prepared for the shows I do, but you've kept everything, you kept the questions from me, and I'm doing this off the cuff, which I'm not used to doing. But I did have a think about the sort of things that you would ask me. I went back and had a look. This is, compared to the previous 2 years of the Brad Scott era, I think we've reached this point of the season in a much better frame of mind. We've sort of been in the 8 or the cusp of the 8, or, even last year somehow we were, top 4, even though our percentage was under 100%. And to be where we are now is concerning. Obviously there is the injuries that you cannot look past that. And that's obviously had a big impact, but even before the injuries, we were having games where we just weren't coming to play, or there were sections that things looked pretty grim. I think the thing that's frustrated me this year is we're in our 3rd year under Brad Scott, and I feel like we're in our 3rd iteration of a game plan. I think if you go back to Brad Scott's 1st year, we were very happy to play from deep in defence. So we'd let teams move the ball up. We'd trust ourselves to try and win it back, and then we'd look to move the ball the whole length of the field. And that worked for a bit, and then that fell apart towards the end of that year. And then we almost did the opposite last year, and we tried to play a real front half game. We had those games. We were getting a lot of intercepts in our forward half. We were getting a lot of repeat inside 50s, but for various reasons, in terms of marking forwards, in terms of crummers, we weren't putting the score on the board effectively for the amount of territory that we were getting. And then it was because we were pushed so far forward, it was easy for teams to move the ball the other way. And so we had those games. I think the one that sticks with me often is the Carlton game last year, where second and third quarter, we just peppered our forward line. They got a couple of goals out the back, and then we were just burnt. And that happened quite a lot last year. And then this year, maybe it's because we've had so many injuries, but the game plan has not been as identifiable to me in terms of what we've tried to do. I think we have tried to pull back, because I think we realized last year that we were struggling to turn that inside 50 dominance into scores, because our forward line was congested. We had nowhere to go in terms of marking targets. We didn't have the crummers to be able to pull it off. So we've pulled back a bit. We've invited a little bit more pressure in order to open up our forward line to score more. At this stage, it hasn't really worked that well. And again, that's a personnel thing, both in terms of injuries and in terms of just where the list is at. So I think the lack of an identifiable brand, I think we can find pieces of the brand of what we're trying to do. We are trying to move the ball quicker from the back half. We don't always do that, and I know people are frustrated with the short kicks and the long kicks backward and things like that. But I think you can't always run and gun. I think the sort of the Knights era, where that was basically and the only golf club in the caddy bag. That doesn't work either. So you've got to play tempo sometimes. You've got to take territory. You've got to slow down. We have tried to do that, but whether it's because of our skills or our lack of ability to set up the ground very well, we can't do it consistently. So I think that's probably the thing that has really that's frustrated me the most. And again, some of it is out of the control of the team, and some of that is just we are still a developing team, which again is really frustrating for fans. And I completely get the frustration that people have with how we're going and how it feels like we are sort of spinning in circles.
Yeah.
I think.
Just on that, pausing on that, can you hear me? Do you think just on that specific point in terms of this year seeing less, I guess for want of putting it a better way, less of the puzzle pieces all kind of fitting in and seeing a more cohesive game plan, do you feel there's an element of the coaches and Brad Scott still using this year to experiment with different setups, with different, I mean, the obvious one is seeing different players in different positions. We can all assume that they're having a play around. Do you think that extends to the game plan as well? Is there an element that we can because I'm asking myself why that question, because that's one of the things I wrote down that has frustrated me, that I can't quite grasp what exactly they're being told to do. And that was one of my, play devil's advocate. Maybe they've just set at the start of the year. They know that this year's probably not a finals year, so why not use it to blood a few players? Maybe not out of necessity, but that's happened out of necessity anyway, but also to play around with structure and system. Or is that just not something a professional AFL club does in a season, mid-season?
I don't think you can learn a game plan in season. I think it's something you have to be working on for quite a time. And you often see this with new coaches who come in and they implement their game plan, and it's awkward at first, and they struggle. The team struggles to get it together, but then something clicks mid-season. I think it was Kingsley's first year at GWS springs to mind, where they weren't doing too well at the start of the year. Things weren't clicking, but around mid-season, because they were focused on the game plan, they wanted to play, and the players had finally learnt it to the point where it was becoming second nature. They went on a run. And so I know the club's talked about long-term and that, but I don't think any club goes into a season going, "Oh, we're not going to play finals this year," or "We don't think we're likely to play finals." Because I think that if you go in with that sort of thought, that permeates through the club and the players, and just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you come in saying we're not going to play finals this year, then you're not going to do it. So I think the goal has always been to push this as far as they can. I just don't think they haven't put floors or limits on what they can achieve. So but I think they've obviously had plans, but then everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And we got punched in the face by the Hawks in the first quarter. We got punched in the face by the Crows. I'm trying to think who we play after Port? No, that was Gather Round, and then we had bye, and then we had Gather Round. I'm just trying to think back through the season. So and then the injuries start to
as you say, it's like they have plans. That's why I find it just ridiculous when people say, "Oh, well, why didn't we put someone on Dankos and like." All the Adelaide mids. Well, of course they plan to. Like, of course there was a plan. That's what they do in the meetings during the week. They look at these players and they plan for them. It just means that it didn't work. Their plans didn't come to fruition. That's just what happened.
No, exactly. And I think just to go back to your original question, in terms of positives, I think one of the things that's really stood out this year is the ability of the coaches to reset the playing group at quarter time. They've obviously gone in with a plan and it hasn't worked. So you think about the Brisbane game, you think about the Carlton game where we got jumped. Okay. So, and that's not, I don't think that was because of the players didn't have the effort or they weren't committed. It was simply that there was, they went in with a plan. It didn't work and they reset at quarter time and they got on top. And in both those games, if you just looked at the last three quarters, we were the better side in those three games. Yeah. It's just we were coming from so far back. So I think that's a real positive that the coaches have shown that they can arrest momentum. I think that also says a lot about the group in terms of their maturity, because it's doesn't seem to be something they necessarily can do in game. And part of that is simply the fact that we haven't got the leadership on the field because they're all injured. So that's in terms of positives, that's one of them. I think the other positive really does come down to those young players. And the really positive sign is, for me, that the best sides have development and VFL programs where they can bring players in from that, knowing that they have been taught the right way, that they've been developed the right way, and they can come in and do the play their role straight away. So I look at players like, take Lewis Hayes. I know we're all, disappointed that he did his injury, but for those, first 3 quarters that he was playing, he looked fantastic. He looked like he belonged. I think was it Ridley out that week? I think it might have been, and he replaced. So he replaced Ridley, and as good as Ridley was, I don't think we really missed Ridley up until that point because Hayes was filling that role so well, and that's what you want from a VFL program, that they can bring these players in and have them perform. We've seen,
and he's probably a good measure, Lewis Hayes, because he's been in the VFL system for like a lot of Brad Scott's entry and a lot of the change across the club. So he's a good measure of how that development is going.
Yeah,
he's had a good induction. Yeah,
exactly. And then the young, even the first year players like a Johnson or a Clark, even a Lual. Like I think Lual blew us all away. I don't think anyone expected him to be as good at AFL level as he has been. He's probably performed better at AFL level than he has at VFL level. Funnily enough, it gives me hope that
he's my favourite. He's my favourite debutant. Like, it's a toss up, but he's been my favourite because purely I don't think it's supposed to go the other way. You're supposed to potentially struggle when you get to AFL, not the other way around. You're not supposed to just raise that bar straight away. But so he's been my favourite debutant. I mean, on the coaches, let's put them in the spotlight for a second. So the 2 things that I wanted to see at the start of the year from the coaches, keeping them as a separate entity to the players and the playing group, I wanted to see some discernible game plan. Basically, we've covered that part. So we've covered what we think is happening there. The second thing I wanted to kind of see was accountability. Player accountability, structure accountability when things are not going right in game, kind of accountability to be able to be a bit creative and change things on the spot. I like what I've seen from the in-game accountability. Do you think they've been great? Do you think they have held their end of the bargain with player accountability? I know we've had injuries and we've had to bring in players out of necessity, so this has maybe skews the question. But what do you think?
It's hard, right? Because I think we don't see everything that these players do. I think you look at let's go back a year or two, and you look at someone like a Jake Kelly, who I think
is there a reason you brought him up, Hume?
No, I just thinking this wasn't me. I think the fandom was always like, why is Jake Kelly continuing to be picked? Why is he being picked over other players? And I think one of the reasons that he would have been picked was because he was doing the right things. He might have had moments in game where he was struggling or it looked like he wasn't doing the right thing. But he looked to me like someone who turned up to training on time, did everything that was required, went and did extras, listened to what the coaches wanted him to do. They told him to play on the wing. He's probably never played on the wing in his life before he came to Essendon. So I think there are players like that who get a longer rope because they are doing the hard work, and the coaches can see that, and that might be things that we do not see. So I think there are some players like that. There's that. I think probably the player at the moment that everyone is frustrated with the most is Archie Perkins. And I think based on what he said, I think it was the Flight Plan who did the interview with him pre-season, and talking about how he struggled mentally to deal with down patches in form. I think part of him continued to be picked comes down to them trying to manage his mental state. I don't know. Armchair psychologist, so I really shouldn't be saying this, but I imagine that in the coach's mind, continuing to pick him in the AFL will be more beneficial than dropping him because he might spiral. I don't know. Look, again, I really shouldn't be going armchair psychologist. I think the problem with Archie is that sorry.
No, go for it.
First three seasons, he had really steady development. Like, he got better every year. Yeah. But he never really got injured. And then the start of last year, he started really well. Then he had the injury, and then he struggled to pick it up again. Same thing this year. Started really well this year, injured, struggled to pick it up again. So I think he's someone who benefits from a long period of continuity. When that continuity breaks, he struggles. So I think there's that. There's certainly some players that have more rope in terms of their the accountability that the coaches have for them than others. Yeah, I will stop playing armchair psychologist. I apologise to Archie.
Well, no,
diagnosing you there.
Well, no, I consider myself more than an armchair psychologist. I think I could be a psychologist with all the work and kind of the work in that space that I've done in general and the love I have for it. So I do know a lot about it, and I think from my point of view, without being a professional, obviously, just coming from my own experience talking people through certain things, I think the best thing for him mentally right now is not to look at it, oh, he's dropped and oh, he's out of form, but kind of reframing the whole situation. Like, go and find some form, go have 50 touches in the VFL and feel great about yourself. Feel like you're bullying like VFL players. Get a bit of the ego, like get a bit of that back in terms of like in a healthy way. Right now, I think he's trying to be someone. He's trying to be ego-less. He's trying to contain himself. He's stunting his natural instinct right now in the AFL. He's wearing the world on his shoulders, and there's no mind and body connection right now. It's in conflict when I look at him and when I look at his movements on the ground. That's in conflict, and when that's happening, the two things that help with that is recognizing it, naming what's happening, so that feeling can dissipate. Recognizing that that's the problem and not that it's all about you and that you suck at what you do and blah, 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 and life's ending and all of that. And then the second thing is taking the pressure off, putting yourself in a situation where the pressure's kind of, it's nobody's looking at you to be a game saver, to be a game match winner. You're just going to the VFL. You're having maybe you say to him four games in a row. He's never I don't think done that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe in the chat somebody
last year, I think he played a few. Just from memory, I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think the back end of last year he was definitely in the VFL for a period.
Yeah, and I think the way that we frame it and the way that fans and media frame it, he's dropped, he's out of form badly. But if we reframe the way he's looking at it, you're just going back and finding the love again. He looks like he's lost the love for the game, the love for winning, for competing, that natural high that you get from close games and kicking a goal. He looks like that's completely gone because he's second guessing. Should I be celebrating? I'm out of form. I just kicked a goal. Should I celebrate if I don't hit that much? Like his mind's going 100 miles an hour. You can see it. And I just think if you take pressure off and you frame it as go to the VFL, have some fun, find fun. And you'll see that naturally he'll find form and then he'll naturally be able to come back. So personally, I think that psychologically at this point, we can see what's going on. It's mentally. He's got all the talent. He's got the skills. We've seen it. He just needs a bit of a stopgap, Yeah. So anyway, I think that's a fair comment. Yeah. All right. So before we get on to the next kind of little segment, I want to ask you about our percentage, right? So you know better, and you're going to frame it, and your partner in crime, Jono, in the chat will also, I'm sure, have a say in framing it this better than I will at all. But firstly, dumb it down for all of us. What encompasses a percentage? What makes up the percentage? And the second is, when are we going to get this balance right? Because even when we're winning games, our percentage is still so poor. So what do we need to do, and when is that going to turn? Because if we can't get that right, a lot of people use that as a measure of how good you're actually going.
Yeah, I think there's a definite case to that, and I think at the moment we've got the third worst percentage, even though we're 12th or 13th on the ladder. So that. So I guess for those who don't know, it's your score for divided by your score against times 100. So that's what ends up with your percentage. I think a percentage is 79%. So that's basically what your percentage is. Mm-hmm. At the moment, when we win, it's a tight game. We can't put sides away. We can't get those easy kills. I look at a side like the Bulldogs at the moment, who everyone's like, oh, they're so good, and why don't they win more? Well, the Bulldogs are a side that when they sniff blood, pun intended, they put sides away, like with us. How many times have we been on the back end of a Dogs percentage booster?
Oh, I just love it.
It's not, some pretty bad games, pretty bad days sitting at Marvel watching the Bulldogs do what they want. Still scarred by that 2019 game. I was just glad this year that it wasn't. We kicked
the first goal, and then it was downhill from there very quickly. What was it, like 19 goals in a row or something like that?
I was 21. I sat through all of them. It was so bad. So we don't do that to teams, and we haven't done that for quite a while. I think if you go back to sort of that mid 2010s, that Wilshire era, there were games where we just demolished sides. We 60 point, 70 point wins. We put away the bad sides. We don't have the capabilities to do that, and part of that is through ball movement and things like that, which we've struggled with, particularly probably since Sada McKenna going was a pretty big loss for us. Like in terms of our ability to move the ball, and they weren't perfect players, but they are the sort of players that when they get on top, they demolish sides. Then that is part of the reason why you were able to put on scores, and we've never really replaced them with any consistency in terms of ball movement. That's why we've been putting Dylan Shield behind there.
Martin.
So when we win games, it's because we're just getting over the line. Within 10 points, within 2 goals. I think a big win for Essendon at the moment is sort of 4 goals. We don't really beat teams by more than that. I think one of our wins is by more than 4 goals, which would have been the Melbourne game. So we're not putting 40. Teams away. We're not putting teams away when we win, and when things fall apart for us, they fall apart.
Yeah.
So it gets bad.
At least we're excited against something, right?
That's it. So I think, but that's one of the things that we're probably taking out of this era of under Brad Scott is that we know how to win close games right now. We know how to hold on. We've learnt one of the best things that we've come out of the Brad Scott era is that in tight games we know how to win those games. I think I looked at this. I think it was within 10 points. Games within 10 points in the Brad Scott era versus the 3 years before. It was something like 10 wins, 5 losses under Brad Scott for really close games versus 7-7 the year before, or the similar period prior to Brad Scott. So I think there is definitely an element where we have learned how to win close games. So I think that is something that will potentially, as we get be a better side, that is something we can actually take out. And in games that we are currently winning by, 10 points, if we start winning those sort of games by 30 or 40 points, that's probably a sign that we're becoming a better side. And then the games we're losing by 4 or 5 goals, those games will get into that, squeaky bum territory where our experience of winning close games could come in handy. So, but again, there's a whole heap of things that go into that. And the percentage is really going to improve when the team improves as a whole.
I think that's a pretty succinct way to put that. I think the percentage just, is going to improve when the team does and when all the other pieces fall. Is it safe to say, is the percentage the last puzzle piece, or is it one of the first? So what's going to improve first, like the game plan or the percentage? If you had to think about it, question without notice, as they all are.
If you look at a couple of the sides that have gone up the ladder after being down for a while, it sort of was that percentage that showed it first. I think Brisbane under, and in the first couple of years under names escaping me, under their current coach,
Fagan.
Thank you. Yep. The year before they really jumped up, their percentage, was quite high, and it had been higher than it had been.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that can be a sign that you're going to improve. So I think if that was one of my watches for this year was our percentage in terms of that. So obviously that it hasn't come to pass yet. So I think it can be a sign, and we've seen it be a sign in the past.
Okay, well that's pretty good. I think that's something to hold on to. because Brisbane are certainly flying, and it was so enjoyable watching them demolish the Cats, knowing that we almost demolished them at home. So that was a little. You got to look at between the lines of these things, and you got to take comfort out of that. Obviously, let's ignore the fact that Kangaroos beat Carlton and we almost beat Carlton. Let's forget about that one and just look at the positive one that's actually going to suit my agenda in this moment. So that's great. So we could hold on to that. All right, Hume, it's time to get into the next segment that I have prepared. Now, this segment and chat, we want your input as well. We are going to rate the players in the groups. Jono, if you're in the chat still, you'll be very happy with who I've put in the midfield category and not in the defender category. And so we're going to give them a rating. Chat, help out Hume, help out me, and we'll see how we go. So it's going to be a live rating. Let's get to it. So let's start with the midfield. What are we giving to our skipper, Hume? And you can give me a quick one too, if you like, on some of these things, but we'll just try and keep it nice and succinct. And chat, help us out. What are we giving?
So just quickly, Fiona, am I giving this just based on this year, or am I considering expectations of what we expect from these players?
I think that expectation certainly comes into it. So it's just off this year. So I'll confirm how many games that each player has played, so we have some context. So we can't judge them too harshly in terms of if they've only played 2 games, maybe that we take that into context. And sure, let's put what we expected of them and how they've matched up versus our expectations. So obviously Merritt has played all games, every game, 14 games. So how do you think this is probably one of the more trickier ones given his second half of the season. What do we think?
If you'd asked me 4 weeks ago, I'd be easily 9.
This is a complete.
This is the thing. Like, is it recency bias, and I want to give him a lower number? I mean, it's
well, take it into whole. So you're the statistician, you're the mathematical genius. Average it out.
So I was going to give him. If you asked me 4 weeks ago, I'll give him a 9. I think he's a 6 to 7 for his last 4 weeks. So 2/3 of the season's been a 9. A third of the season's been 6 to 7. So I think 7.5, round up to 8. I feel like if I gave Zach Merritt 7, there'd be riots. But I think for the season, season 8. But there's been a drop. There's definitely been a drop in performance. I think we were talking Brownlow form early in the season. No one's talking that now.
Yeah. I think if you ask me, I would probably have him at a 7.5. That's where my thinking was. So I think we're pretty on point with that. All right, let's get on to the one and only Nicholas Martin, who, as you can see, is in the midfielder category, mainly because that is where we want him, but also because as a little homage to you and your partner in crime who love him in this spot. So what do we think?
Jono was calling for Nick Martin in the midfield, I think after about his second game. So he likes to claim he was the first one to call for it.
Maybe before he even debuted, maybe just in pre-season.
When the birth announcement was given, he was like,
"Yes, right, Greg, we've got a new baby boy."
Look, I think he's almost the reverse of Merritt. If you asked me 5 or 6 weeks ago, based on what I expected of Nick Martin, I'd be looking at a 6. But he's up until the last week and a bit, or last couple of games, he had 5 or 6 games there where he was a 10 out of 10 player. So Agreed. I think he's also an 8, but again, it's not an even 8. It's a 6 for the first half of the season so far, 10 for the next 40%, and then back to a 6 for the last couple of games. So that's where we're going to have an 8 as well.
Yeah, and I think Shaky Snake in the chat has also nailed it. Nick gets a 9 as a mid, but a 7 everywhere else. So if you take that into consideration, I reckon he's an 8 too. So beautiful. All righty. Next is Ben Hobbs. Now, Hobbsy's played 13 games, missed only the 1. I haven't added in sub games because in my head the sub rule sucks. And so if you named us 13 games, then you played 13 games. Oh, okay. There's some there's some very obvious ratings going on for him. Where do you see him, Jimmy?
I am with Richard O'Connor. I have 5. Okay. He is obviously playing the half forward role, which isn't his natural fit. And, so I think some people are giving him 3s and 4s. I wouldn't go that low because he's playing a role outside. He's playing a role outside his skill set for the most part. But there's just when you tell me, Fiona, what's a Ben Hobbs moment you remember from this year? What's a moment where you can go, Ben's imposed himself on the game?
There was one game where he played majority of the midfield, and I made a comment was I doing fan cams at that point, or was it just me talking into the void on Twitter? I made a comment that he and Merritt in there looked like 2 bulls in a cage, loving life with drool coming down their chins because they were in there. They were absolutely in their element in the midfield, absolutely going at it. And Hobbs looked like he was at home. He was comfortable there, and he was scooping the ball out to the better, ball users. But I couldn't tell you much more than that, and I can't even tell you that game. But you're right. There are no discernible wow moments for Hobber.
Yeah, agreed. And just I just want to respond to Dave. Dave in the chat. I think it was Dave. Sorry, talking about effort.
Yes, here we are.
I think the big thing with Ben Hobbs, he gets a lot of credit for looking like he's putting in a lot of effort. But I think the thing that frustrates me most with Ben is there's one effort, and he goes to ground so often, and then he's out of the contest. So there's a big first effort, but there's not the follow-up efforts. So that's the thing that frustrates me about Ben Hobbs. The other thing that frustrates me about Ben Hobbs is he doesn't take the first option. There's so many times I've watched him get the ball. There's been a good option. He goes quick, either by hand or by foot, and he doesn't take it. He hesitates, and then the moment's lost. So that's what really frustrates me. That's what frustrates me about Ben, and that's why for me he's not playing midfield.
Okay, so what are we giving him? A 4.5?
Giving him a 5. I'll be generous and round up.
Alrighty, sure. All right, let's move on to Darcy Parish, who obviously has had a terrible time with it, but now has played 3 games. I personally think he is copping way more than he should. I think when he's come back in the past, I have said in the past, he takes 5 games to warm up. You can't all be Jai Caldwell, who misses 2 games and comes back out and has a 40 possession game and 6,050 tackles and 552 pressure moments. Like, not everyone is like that. Historically, Parish has taken at least a handful of games to really clean himself up and to get going. I also think people look for him to be that precise, clean ball user, and he is not. If you take him at face value and for what he is meant to bring to this team, I think he's probably, coming and showing up. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think so far from what we've seen, I think the way he's come back this year, I like how you highlighted the one that said you were spot on. That's I guess that's the benefit of being the host, isn't it?
I'm trying to balance out the negative, the good and the bad. I think Adam also gave me a spray up above as well, so I haven't put that one on. But as you say, host choice.
That's it. Host powers. I'd give him a 6. I think if you compare the way he came back last season into the side compared to this first, if you think about Darcy's first 3 games last year versus his first 3 games this year, he's the way he's come back in this year has been better than the way he came back in last year. I think, you're spot on about Darcy. I think because Essendon fans have been starved of success for so long, we are desperate for the Messiah. This is why Herd coaching keeps getting brought up. We want that Messiah to come in and save us. And so we want our players to be able to do everything. And Darcy Parish can't do everything, but what he can do is he can win clearance. He can, he's got a good couple of first steps. He can get a bit of space. He can draw opponents and then release. Problem for the moment is that we don't have the players who can release very well. That next possession player. Obviously, especially with Zach going out. of that midfield balance, and especially the last couple of weeks. I think the absence of Durham has been underplayed in terms of the impact that he has on the side, because he can be that second possession player. Darcy Parish can be a great player in a great side, but we need people around him to do the roles that he can't, and we can put him in that way. Yeah.
Which is what makes a good team. They're not all scrubbers. They're not all elite ball users. But if you have a few of each, that's how you create a puzzle, and that's how you create a winning. You don't expect players to play outside of their capabilities, because they all bring something good. And if you champion their strengths, you end up with a very happy puzzle piece. All right.
Exactly. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. Look at the way that Richmond learned to use Dustin Martin. They knew he wasn't a great defensive player, but he could do offensive things, not offensive things like chopsticks related, but offensive things on the football field.
He's in his first singer. Well done, Hume. I like that. I did enjoy that. That was very quick.
That's all right. But things offensively on the football field that no one else could. And they learned that their best chance of success was to put players around Dustin Martin that could cover for his deficiencies and allow him to be as effective as he could be. That's what we need to be able to do. We don't need players to do everything. But we need there needs to be a base level of commitment, obviously, and to be involved in zones and things like that. And that's another. I'm going to do another drive by to Ben Hobbs. The amount of times that he gets lost in transition again is another issue I have. This is not the Hate Ben Hobbs show, but hopefully none of his friends or family are watching this.
Please don't. This is not never a downer.
We need to put players. What Darcy Parish can do at his best. There's few players in the competition that can. We need to put players around him to get the best out of him. And if we do that, then that's another way we get up the ladder. Anyway.
Agree. All right, let's move on to a very tricky one, Hume. It is Dylan Shield. He has played 8 games. This is a difficult one, but what have you got for me? And chat, what have you got?
If you put him in the defensive group like you started the year, we'd be looking at a 2 or a 3. He had some good games in the midfield there when he was playing through there. But I think it's pretty clear that the Dylan Shield era at Essendon is over. It's probably sad. We're not going to get to that 100-game mark. I do like when players get close to get them to that mark, just in case they do have kids. That's why I was pretty happy that we got Jake Stringer over the line, given his proclivity to produce offspring.
Yes.
He's not going to get 100. He didn't get 100 games at the Dogs, and he's not going to get 100 games at the Giants. But there's always going to be as long as father son is a thing, there will.
That's such a great point.
Yes. So unfortunately, we're probably not going to get Dylan there. I think. I don't think you can give more than a 3 for Dylan.
I agree. Yeah, a 3 at best. All right. Xavier Dersma. I reckon he's been. Would you say, if not the most, close to our most consistent?
Yeah, because he randomly has games where it's just like he looks like he's forgotten how to play football.
Oh my god!
It's like 1 in every 4 or 5. There's just a game where it's like you are really, really good. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard on the wing, because sometimes on a wing the ball just doesn't go near you. And if you're doing your job as a wing, then unfortunately there's going to be games where the ball doesn't go near you. I really like him. I said if he played the whole season, he'd be All-Australian. He's not going to be All-Australian this year, but the things that he does, I think he's valued a lot higher in the club than he is in the wider football community. I really rate him. I'd love to give him more than I'll give him an 8 for playing for the role on the wing that he's playing. I probably should give him a 7, but I think there's more levels where Xavier can go to, but the things that he does for this football team are invaluable, and he's one of my favourites.
Agreed. All right, I'm comfortable with the 8, and Jack, I think you nailed it firstly, so well done. All right, another contentious, and I think Moby's got a question in regards to this individual. It is Elijah Sardis, who has played 4 games. There is a plethora of conjecture about him. I guess succinctly, what is your opinion on it, and what are we giving him for his 4 games?
I mean, the Hawthorn game was good. Not the Hawthorn. Was it Hawthorn? No, the Adelaide game. The Adelaide game was good. Not much you can say about the rest. I mean, and it's clear he's got deficiencies that we talked about. You talked about selection integrity. If we didn't have selection integrity, we'd be playing our pick 5 every game, even though there's things that he doesn't do yet, or he doesn't do well. And I don't think it's the kicking that's the main issue. I think it's the defensive aspects of football, playing in the zone, playing as a part of a whole, doing the defensive actions. I think just on his senior year, it's a 2. Like if you're grading his VFL form, you'd be a 9. But we're not grading VFL form.
No, that's not what we're doing here. We are looking at his AFL life. And granted, he did, I think it was 3 or 2, maybe 1 or 2 of those games actually he was a sub. But again, we're not doing the sub thing. So what do we think?
Yeah, I think 2. And again, I like. It's similar to what I said about Darcy Parish, right? There are things that Elijah Sardis can do that very few people can do at the level that he can do.
Yeah.
And if we had the team structure around him, we could take advantage of that. But there's clear deficiencies. And again, I'm judging him on his AFL level. I want him to work. I want him to figure it out against the side. Yeah, it's
100%. This is not a diss on any player. It's just a very respectful sum up of where we see their season to date. And there's 9 more games to go. Things can change quickly. Who knows? We all think we've got the answer to what's going on with him and what his future holds, but I think none of us do. So I think fairly a 2 is fair given the opportunity he's been given. So, all right, next on is Sam Durham, the hard nut. Durham has played 12 games. Obviously would have played, I suspect, all 14 if he had not been suspended. But what are we giving him?
Well, I haven't seen any 11s posted yet, so I don't think Taz is in the chat.
Not here tonight.
I think there's levels he can go to. I think he's had games where he's excelled, and then there are times in games where he disappears. I don't know if disappears is the right word, but he's not. He's got the attributes to be an A-grade elite player, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't always impact the game enough to be at that level. So I think Charby said 8. I think that's probably fair for me. I think another one of those, like we talked about what moments can you remember from Hobbs. You can always remember a Durham moment because it's spectacular.
True.
I think his year is an 8.
Okay. I would go probably a 7 because I just think putting him on par with Zach and Nick, I don't think he's quite there. But because you're the guest, I'm happy to go 7.5. All right?
All right, deal.
All right. And our last for our mid and one of my personal favourites, it is the tough nut in Jai Caldwell.
If you did it after I mentioned 11s before. If you did it after the Hawthorn game, you would be giving it 11. If you're doing it for solely the third quarter against Brisbane, you'd be giving him a 15. It's the injuries, and then having to come back from the injuries. I can't give him more than a 7. But his peak, his peak performances this year have been the best that any Essendon midfielder has put out. And I include as a peak Zach Merritt performance. His peak is arguably the best in the side. Due to injury and other factors, he can't perform at that level the whole time. But yeah, when he is on, he is the best player at the club.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. So I would put him as an 8, no lower than an 8. What do you think?
Well, we can split the difference and do another 7.5 then.
Okay. All right, let's do that. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair, to be honest. I think they're just Daz and Caldwell, I think, are just below Nick and Zach. And of course, I did say the last mid, but it is not the last mid. It is Will Setterfield, who I completely forgot off this list. So that shows how well I am doing. But Old Setters has played 11 games, which when I actually read that, I thought that was shocking. I think he's played more than what I thought. I'm super impressed with his 11 games, to be honest. I did not think he had that in him. I didn't think his body had it in him. Touch all the wood, everybody in chat and watching. How have you seen him, and what do we give him?
Well, you're right. 11. I think that's the most he's played for Essendon in these 3 years. He's had those injury issues those past 2 years, and I had a look at a couple of weeks back, and I think if he does end up playing the rest of the season, it'll be the most AFL games he's played in a season in his career. I think he had a year at Carlton where he may have played 18 or 19 or something like that. I think there's been games where he's been hugely impactful in that stopper element, but he needs the right matchup. Like the last couple of weeks, it's been really obvious against Geelong and then against Fremantle that he doesn't have the pace to go with. I think against Geelong, we saw him up against Holmes and Smith at different times, and both of those players just burnt him. Sarong last week burnt him. You cannot question his effort. You cannot question his commitment. He sets a really good example in terms of doing the hard things and putting your body on the line. So those intangibles really raise him up. His ball use isn't outstanding, but I think it's passable. I can't have him higher than Durham or Caldwell, so I'm going to give him a 7. But in terms of commitment, he's like a 9. But 7 overall.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's pretty fair in terms of, as you say, he obviously doesn't have that durability or strength or agility to go with those really strong other mids, but he also is probably not as great offensively as well. So the best taggers are, quasi-tagging and also hitting the scoreboard and doing a lot of offense to balance it out. And he's probably just not, I don't quite remember the last goal he kicked, to be quite honest. But that doesn't change his opinion for me. But if he was to go to a 9, that's what he'd need to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think Dave makes a good point here, Dave G. Dons. He's a role player. And you need role player. You can't have
Dave.
23 superstars. Okay. It doesn't work. You've got to have those players that do the hard work, that do the work that doesn't get rewarded or doesn't get highlighted on the media programs or get clicked up onto social media. You need those players who do the hard things and do them without fuss. And Setters this year, that's what he's done.
Yeah, okay. That wraps up our mids. Now, Hume, this is where I need a hot minute to get the next page up. So you are going to attack the first chat question, which I believe Moby brought up, and I'm just going to give you one word. You can scroll back to the question, but you won't need it. You'll know what the question is, and that is Draper. Go, Hume. I'm
packing his bags. I'm nearly at say. Oh, sorry, that's a bit harsh. Look, I'm gonna refer to my show. But if you've been a long time listener to Don the Stat, you'll know that both Jono and I have been talking about this since the start of Don the Stat, which was 4 seasons ago, with the Draper Bryan conundrum and the fact that we can't carry both. Right, we cannot have both of them on the list long term because either, especially now with, I think we're going to get to him, your favourite. Later on, we get to the forwards. His resurgence in form suddenly means that the 2 ruck proposition, like the 2 genuine ruck proposition, is not as needed anymore. I think at the end of last year, we were saying, well, is Peter Wright going to get back to 2022 Peter Wright? Therefore, we need to play 2 rucks. And Draper obviously showed at the start of this season that he could be a threat forward. Probably not to the consistent extent that Peter was at his best, but he could be dangerous, and it was working to an extent. But if we cannot keep both Draper and Bryan, especially after the weekend, and we saw Vicentini and his performance and what he showed as a first gamer 19-year-old, we cannot have Draper. Let's say start next year they're all fit. We've kept them all. We have Draper in the ruck, Peter Wright because he's performed well for the rest of the year. He's starting. You can't then play Bryan. So you've got a really strong ruckman playing in the VFL who is probably an AFL quality ruckman with Vicentini who's showing signs of being an AFL quality ruckman. Why are you missing all these spots on AFL quality ruckman when you can only play one? So that's where I'm at. So I'm at. It has to be one of them has to go, and sorry, I'm ranting here.
Keep going. I'm not ready yet.
That's all right. The problem is going to we've obviously put an offer to Draper, and I think it's pretty consistent. That's 4 years and $700,000, which to us mere mortals that sounds like a pretty sweet deal. But when other clubs come with larger offers, and especially clubs that are closer to premierships like Brisbane and Adelaide that are willing to pay more to get players they think they need for right now. The longer we wait, the longer Draper takes to make a decision, the more antsy Nick Bryan is going to get in terms of is he going to stay at the club, and he might start looking at offers and things like that. And so there's a potential circumstance where we lose both because we've taken too long on one of them. There's obviously going to come a point in the next couple of weeks where the club is going to have to say to Sam Draper, look, if you can't give us an answer in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have to focus on getting Nick Bryan's contract done. And then he goes, and then that probably Draper is gone on a free agency, and we take the pick. So I don't think the club should budge from their offer. I think it's historically you haven't needed great ruckman to win flags. So as sad as it would be to lose Sam, I'm not. He's not a keep at any price player. So it's a roundabout way of saying that if he goes, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to play from a team perspective. I'm going to be upset that we don't get to see him play.
And I think I don't know who it was. I'm not going to scroll all the way up, but hopefully you're still in the chat. Who said? I think it was Snazzy Shoes who said that's all great, but oh my god, seeing him go to Brisbane and become an absolute freaking champion is going to be very painful. But you know what? That's the same as I did feel the same way as the same way with Sard and all of that. That's just a natural thing that's going to happen. Any player who goes to any club,
and
I think if we're
going to Brisbane,
exactly. And I think if we're rating the actual palatable teams that we'd be happy to see him at, Brisbane is probably closer to the top anyway. So, all right. So hopefully we've discussed that enough in about Draper. Let's get on to the defenders. And yes, you're right. This is very funny. Well done, Shaky Snake. Are we rating the rehab group? It certainly feels like that. Absolutely. And this first one is concerning me. I don't know about you, Hume, but the TBC next to his name is really, really concerning me.
Especially with foot issues. What was it?
Yeah.
Was it Hurd's navicular that kept him out of a lot of that late 90s? I can't remember if that was the injury. He had so many injuries, he probably harder to point to a part of Hurdy's body that he wasn't injured in than he was at the end of his career. It's really worrying. I think, in terms of his performance this year,
he's played 10 games, and I think 5 of those in his last 5, I think he really started to hit his straps. I think his first 5 were concerning and everyone was doubting, but the last 5, I was really starting to see the bigger picture with him. And again, he got his head right. Same thing with Archie. I could see his mind out on the field. It looked like that meme with what's his name and all the guy from The Hangover with all the sums and the blackboard in the background and all
Zach Galifianakis.
Exactly that. Exactly. You could see his mind going 100 miles an hour, and something clicked in it from about game 5 for me, and I thought he started to absolutely really take the game on. So
I think 6. I think 6 is a fair.
Okay.
I know some people are saying 5. I think that's sort of a 6, yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Let's hope he can come back in this year. I'm starting to worry that it's going to even be this year. But anyway, all right, let's move on to another concerning player, but we will be seeing him hopefully, if not next week, the week after, and that is Jordan Ridley. He has played 6 games, which is just not enough.
No, I think based on the fact he's only played 6 games, and even then, I don't think he was outstanding in those. He wasn't the Jordan Ridley. When we think of Jordan Ridley, we're thinking effort. The effortless intercept marks, the really, really good ball use. I don't think we saw that in the games this year. I'm giving him a 5. I'm going to stop saying an SA for every player, because if we do that, we'll be here till 2 a.m.
All right, no problem. All right, let's.
I think what are your thoughts on Jordan? Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think 5 is pretty good. I think, I agree with you. We certainly didn't see him at the Jordan Ridley we know. Bruce, you think Mackay's gone for the season? Yeah, I'm starting to think that. Moby agree with Ridley. Yeah, you're giving him a 6. Yeah, 5 or 6. The injuries are a worry, aren't they? Shaky Snake, you're right. It just looks like a free trip to Qatar. Him and Paul Reedy. That trip certainly looks like a big old fail. Hey James, how are you? Hey Pete, Bomber Pete, thanks for being here, legend. I need at least Ridley to play at least the last 9 games or at least the last 8 games in a row for me to have any kind of confidence going into next year that he's going to be able to get out on the park. Because otherwise, that kind of I hate to agree with Kane Corns, but that contract extension and that contract is looking dicey. So, all right, let's move on to this guy who is becoming a absolute favourite. And that is Archie Roberts. He's played every games. He'd have to be at least a 7, no? Or is that being very generous?
You've got to consider, this is only his second year. It's his first full preseason. He's played every game. He's looked at home. He's, in the top 3 or 4 for the Rising Star. I don't think he can give anything less than a 9. And I have concerns about Archie Roberts. I don't think. Well, if you're looking, if you're one of the 3 or 4 favourites for the Rising Star, you have to be having a pretty good year.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I think.
I'll say 8.5. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. You're strong on that. So I'm giving you what you're strong. And you, to be honest, people are agreeing with you. So, Brett, the legend Brett, you're giving him a 9.5. So, yeah, I think Moby an 8. Yeah. And future captain Jack, you make a great point. That's the thing I love about him. He has leadership potential written all over him. And I called it a few weeks back. So that's something I love about him. All right, let's shuffle on.
Just on Archie. If you're judging Archie Roberts compared to the rest of the competition, you're probably looking at a 7.5 for his year. If you're judging him as a second-year player who is, close to winning the Rising Star, you have to give him a 9.
Okay, I'm happy. I'm more than comfortable with that. What about this guy, Mason Redman? He's played 11 games.
I think Jeremy's right 6. Yeah.
I probably think that's a bit high for him.
Yeah. Someone mentioned, as he said, someone mentioned in the chat, future captain. I feel like everyone who gets the future captain moniker starts to drop off. I remember when that year everyone wanted Redmond as captain and then he dropped away. People wanted Hobbs. People were saying Hobbs is a future captain. He dropped away. So enough of that juju, guys. No.
Right. I'll go wash my mouth out then. All right, Redmond. All right. Are you happy with 5.5 then?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. All righty. Angus Clark. Old Clarky. A wonderful personality. He's now clocked up 5 games. What do we reckon?
Yeah, again, you're basing it on the fact that he's a debutant. He's a draftee this year. Hasn't had a full preseason. Came in and kicked the lights out in that opening game. I think having to go back and play as a defender has hurt him. He hasn't, obviously, I don't think he's put in as good a performance since that first game, but I think that's also due to the fact that he's covering down back. He's having to play.
I did put him in the defenders just because it just didn't, because he's played majority of the time there or a lot of time there. So obviously, ideally, the wing is where we see him. So he'd be with the midfield group. But for now,
Yeah. I can't wait to. One of the best things about getting all these defenders back is him being able to push back up onto the wing. Running Ben Hobbs there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I swear this is not the bash
Ben
Hobbs because I've done it again.
All right. That's okay. But that's not his position. So I think a 7 is, or maybe a 6. 7?
Oh, definitely more than 6. Again, context of where they were 7 to 8. And Brett calling him pup, bringing up the fact that he's Pup Clark. I thought for the longest time that he was Pup Clark because of Red Dog and he looked like Redman. But now it took me to last week that it's probably Pup Clark because of Michael Clark, the cricketer, and he was called Pup.
Is it? Are you sure? I'm pretty sure I heard an explanation.
I want someone at the club. Jade, I don't know if Jade's listening. Next time you're down at the club,
Yeah,
can you
Jade
find
will
out,
know.
please, for us, Jade?
Yes, please. Or if Essendon Media, if you're watching, we need an explanation of where that came from. This next guy is obviously a ruckman, but given that he has not played in that position that he was drafted as, I put him in the defenders pile. So obviously Blackiston has now clocked up 2 games, and boy, I reckon for context is important here.
Yeah, I think you're right. Context, like you're talking about a guy who's played his second and third games ever in defense as his first 2 AFL games.
Exactly.
I really liked what I saw in Fremantle against the Fremantle game up until he got the ball. Everything about him, everything about his attack on the ball was fantastic. The way he would charge the ball and sort of mainline it and hit really hard. I really loved that. I was really excited by that. He just seemed a bit confused when he got the ball what to do, and that's probably due to the fact that he is not a defender and he's not used to that. I think James 3598 sort of hit the mark, based on what you would expect from that. I think 6.5 is good. From a guy who's played 2 games in defence in his life.
Beautiful. All right, let's move on to another incredible young gun or future gun, hopefully, that we have in our midst. Under a lot of pressure so far in his position, obviously, but it is Zach Johnson, who's played 4 games now and certainly looks incredibly comfortable. What rating are we giving him, Hume?
I don't think he's had the heights. He hasn't had the sort of first game, or he hasn't had a level of game that Angus Clark did in that first game against Richmond. So I don't think I can have him quite as high, but I think he settled in really well. And I'm not the first person to say this, but I think he's one of those players that Brad Scott was talking about when he said some of these players who've come in not going out of the side. So yeah, I think about that. Okay,
so about a 7.
I think just below Clark, 6.5.
Just 6.5.
Not quite as good as Clark because he hasn't had that absolute star game like Clark did, but yeah, definitely in that sort of area.
Okay, now on to my favourite of the debutants. It is Luamon Lual. He has played very pleasantly surprising 3 games. And if you had asked me to rate him at the start of the season, it would have been on the D list truck. Literally. No point rating him because he's getting delisted. And now I'm so happy I was so wrong because he looks a player and I called for him to go to the forward line and because he just looks like he could be a game changer and have something special down there. And I just loved what he brings. He looks confused sometimes, but that's going to come with experience, with more leaders around him, with clarity in the game plan. And he excites me, Hume.
He does. Yeah, I was with you. When you're mentally doing who's getting delisted this year, he was almost always on the list for me.
Yeah.
I thought when he was named as an emergency before the Geelong game, it was sort of a sacrifice. So because I think we played their VFL side just before, and so there was someone who had to sit out and couldn't play that week. I thought, they've obviously given him the Braden Ham role, where he's not going to play because you've got no chance of being on the list next year. But yeah, he's absolutely blown me away with what he produced because it's so far above what he's done at VFL level. I think you are looking at, he's below Clark and Johnson in terms of his output, but in terms of he's like a 9 in terms of what I expected.
True. I would probably have him, on par with both of those, to be honest.
I think he's a bit below Johnson and Clark. I'd have him as a 6, but yeah, for someone who I delisted 3-4 weeks ago, he's been exceptional.
Okay, wonderful. All right, this is one of our most prized commodity in Zach Reid, and hopefully, again, another one who will be back hopefully next week, if not the week after. He has played 10 games, which in itself feels like a miracle and a beautiful gift. What are we giving him? Let's punch through these last ones.
Ooh, I'd love to give him a 10, but I think the first couple of games where he was struggling for the pace, sort of bring him back. But everything we saw after those first couple of games is a 9. I think the moment in that
Jeremy's got it. Solid 8.5 is good.
Yeah, that when he got switched onto Georgiades in that Port game, so I think he was killing us. They tried Mackay, they tried Ridley, and he was getting on top of both of them. And then Reed goes on to completely shuts him out of the game. That was the moment where I'm like, right, this guy is serious. Like this, what we've been waiting for is real. So I'm super excited. I'm really excited that he's should be back this week, whether that's in the VFL or the AFL. I'm just really excited that he's going to be back, and we can hopefully see him get another 7 or 8 senior games in for the rest of the year. I think that's going to be really exciting.
All right, this next one, James, I know you're in the chat. You're going to struggle with this one, and everyone's going to have literally a different number for him, but let's try and smash one out. Andy McGrath, obviously he's the vice captain. He's played every game. He wears a heavy crown because of that vice captain. Because of the vice captain badge. He's played 14 games, obviously. Some good, some bad, some in between.
Yeah.
How do we go?
I'm a big defender of McGrath. I think if you go back to the first 2/3 of the season, when we had the rest of our defenders around him, people weren't complaining about Andy McGrath. And now that we are denuded back there and we are struggling for numbers, and Andy has to carry a lot more of a load. His deficiencies, and he has to, I'm not saying he's a perfect player. He does have deficiencies, are being shown up. But if you go back to Anzac Day and the job he did on Bobby Hill, and how when McGrath was moved off to him for 5 minutes, Hill kicks, I think it was 1 or 2 goals. And that was one of the reasons why they kept us at arm's length that day. And, his performance on Charlie Cameron against Brisbane, his defense, he suffers because for a variety of reasons, he's a number 1 pick, and we didn't have a year where there was an out and out, this is the number 1 pick. He suffers because McCluggage has gone on and become a premiership player. He suffers 100%. Because he's in the leadership group, and people get frustrated that he doesn't seem, he keeps making the same mistakes. He just cops way too much for what he is. And on the McCluggage thing, if we picked McCluggage, he'd be Brett Stanton 2.0. He'd be criticised for not doing the hard stuff. He'd be a really good player, but he wouldn't get the recognition from Essendon fans that he deserved. So that is my view. That if we picked McCluggage, that's what he would have ended up as. And McGrath's probably a premiership player at Brisbane right now. Anyway, so long story short, I think 7. I think there's obviously there's been issues, there's problems, but the defensive jobs he's done has been really strong.
All right, I'll give you the 7, but probably a bit high for mine, but that's okay. But not far off. A 6 probably in my eyes, but no problem. All right, let's try and do these last 3, just a one-off, because we've got some other segments that I'm really excited about and are a bit of fun. So, Sardal Hooley, again, popped him in the backline group, but I know he has played a bit of everywhere. He's played 5 games before he got injured. What rating do you think you can give him?
I was a 4. Because I think the reason why he got dropped is that he wasn't following the instructions. I get the feeling. This is just from what I saw. I think he was struggling to play the game plan and play the wing role as what you should be playing a wing role. He's getting sucked in too much. I think his best game. Was
Do you think that's his best position, though, Hume?
I think anyway he needs space to run. So I think. Half back wing, I think are both, because you've got players that rotate. So Archie Roberts at the start of this season, he was sort of that 7th defender, 3rd winger, so rotating through. So we don't have positions anymore like we used to. We don't go, this is their position and they stay there. You've got to play multiple areas of the ground. So I think that sort of region is where he belongs. But I think he got dropped because, again, I don't know anything. I'm just supposition. But he wasn't holding. His best game this year was the Sydney game. Even that was the best I'd seen him hold his width. In other games, he would get sucked in. So I'll give him a 4. But I think that's the issue he needs to work on.
Happy with that. All right, Jackson Pryor played every game. What are we giving him? 5? 5?
6. Keeps getting better. 6? Has to do harder and harder jobs. Yeah, I think 6. All
right, Jaden Laverty, who I didn't think would be playing this year, but we have a full injury list, so he's played 6 games. What do we think?
Been thrown under the bus, having to be the number 1 defender. Stood up, it's probably a 5. game. That's a bit unfair given he's had to do some really tough jobs. But he's also had a lot of goals kicked on him, and his disposal hasn't been great. So I think you're 5.
All right, I think that's probably reasonable. And just somebody did remind me, I think it was Jack. I did forget Lewis Hayes off this. So Hume, you go through Lewis Hayes while I get the forwards up.
Based on the 3 quarters I've seen, I hit an 8 for those 3 quarters. I really liked what I saw. As I said earlier, I really liked what I saw. He's definitely a player, and it's we've had a lot of injuries this year, and that's probably the one that hurts the most because he spent so long getting to the point where he could get to the AFL side. He did all the right things. He worked hard. He got there. He showed he belonged, and then he was cut down and he missed out on the rest of what it could have been. Another 15-game AFL season given our other injuries. So yeah, that one probably saddens me the most. Other than maybe Nick Cox and the fact that he might have to be medically retired because of concussion.
Yeah, and I think that's the one. Like, I think Brad Scott brings Hazy up a lot, so I think that's the one that gets Brad Scott as well, to be quite honest, which is a bit cute. But all right, I think I've got ready to go the forwards. Let's see if we can punch through these. All right, starting with my main man, who happy to spend the rest of the time. No, I'm joking. I was going to say I'm talking about him, but let's not do that. Absolutely could not be more impressed with the way this man has turned his approach to football and the game up. If anything, I'd be attaching Archie Perkins to this man, because if one thing this man was struggling with, it was the mental aspect of getting back to what he does best, and that is being a big boy, competing in the air, being very good below his knees for his size, not getting outmarked often at all, but having most contests. And he lost that. He lost a bit of his bravery and his courage, and there was reasoning for it. But what he did do is he's as committed as Zach Merritt, if not more, to improving himself and improving and trying to get the absolute best out of himself. So he would be someone who I'd be attaching Archie Perkins to show as an example of what it takes and what you need to do to get yourself out of a bit of a rut. So I won't. For the purpose of dice, I'll let you give the rating, because obviously he'd be a 9 for me, but or an 8.
Well, I completely disagree with you, Fiona. I don't know what game you've watched. He's been terrible. You missed 1 goal. It's been absolutely dreadful.
Well, that's the last you'll be here.
That's my last appearance on Bomber Banter, guys. Thanks for having me. I'll see you later. No, I agree, 9. You're right. Based on what he's been like the last couple of years, and that's been down to injury and suspension, and not being struggling to come back off that. I've been super impressed. You talk about you don't have to be in the leadership group to be a leader. He's been a leader this year. He stood up when all our other players have gone down. He's just got even covered up. He's got a bit of swagger about him at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely has.
You know what he's like. You know what he's like when he grabs a mark and then he just sort of struts and he puffs the chest out and he's walking back to his mark.
He loves it.
We weren't seeing that the last couple of years, and we're seeing it now.
There was no swagger about that man. Yeah. There was almost like jumping at shadows kind of thing for him, but the swagger is there. Absolutely. Yeah, he's played 10 games and he's keeping himself fit and healthy. He and Martin are the two who have exceeded in terms of leadership, and I love it. All right, this guy, Isaac Kako, has not missed a game since his debut. He is performing beautifully, if you ask me. I'd have him as an easy 7.5.
Yep, I agree. He's not necessarily getting the goals. I was really glad he actually got a chance to kick a goal. Got to kick a goal this last week because he's doing all the other hard things. And especially with the lack of ball down there the last couple of weeks, it's not been easy for a small forward, but his willingness to get up and involved in the contest and, try and create things, I've been really impressed with. And the goals will come, as we get better, as the ball gets down there more, he can take care of that. And it really excites me with, we're probably going to have Hussein Al-Acker as well next year. I don't know whether he'll come straight in, but he looks like sort of the small forward that plays closer to goal. And I really like what I've seen from Kako up around the ground. And the more good users we can get kicking into side 50, the better off we're going to be. So if he doesn't have to be the goal kicker and the deliverer, he can focus on one aspect. That's going to help him.
All right. Let's see if I'm just going to challenge both of us to just give one number for the rest of these. All right. Harrison Jones, obviously, we know played out of position, but he's played 7 games. Go, Hume.
3.
Great. All right. This guy, I mean, could not love him anymore.
9.
Absolutely, Caddy. Agree.
9. I mean, has some down games, but that happens with young players. It happens with forwards. You don't always hit the scoreboard, especially with our forward entries. 9.
Exactly. Yep, agree. Guelph, 5 games.
I've liked what he brings. He brings something to our side. I think a 6. But he's been better than average when he's been playing. Obviously, coming off injury, and I think that's been an issue for the last couple of years, and prevents him from getting, consistency. But he plays a big role, especially when we need a lockdown player in our forward line. He's done that role a few times really well. So yeah.
Okay. Tom Edwards, obviously 2 games, harsh, hard to judge, but from what we've seen in 2 games, 6.
I didn't. Yeah.
Jack thinks he's too skinny.
Yeah. This came up. I was listening to our friends at the Flight Plan and Lunchtime Catch Up podcast where they did their crossover. It's the week of crossover events in Bomber fandom, as was pointed out in the chat earlier. And they were talking about how we've signed him up, and with the mid-season draft, acquisitions. Would we make that decision? Would we take that? And that Harrison Jones is in that same boat. Archie May is going to be next year because he's 18 months. But, with what Liam McMahon, he's not on the list, but what Liam McMahon is doing in the VFL, you want to give him a look. But do we have the list spot to hold him if we want to? So, it's harsh on the guy because, again, he only got to show a little bit before he had that injury. And, I like that we've backed him in. We obviously picked him for a reason, and we're saying we're backing you in to do what we picked you up to do. But I think hindsight potentially could be an issue there. Anyway, I think a 4 based on what we saw. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Agree. All right. One number. Archie Day-Wicks has played. 5 games.
5.5. I like what I see. I like some of the things that he does.
I'm going halving that because I think about a 4.
Oh, well, you got a 4, have you?
I put him a 5 because you said 5.5, didn't you? So I just took that down to 5.
That's all right.
Yeah. All right, Gresh.
4.
4. Yep.
Some great moments, all right. A lot of average moments. Yep.
Yes. Archie Perkins. Yeah, we're doing the averages here. Archie Perkins, 5. 4. 4. All right, let's do 4.5. Oh, another tricky one. Kyle Langford could not be more than a 3 or 4.
4.
Surely. Yep.
Playing a bit higher up the ground, yeah. I'd be interested to see how he comes back into the side, because the next player on our list is probably the player that would have to go out for Langford if he's going to play forward.
Love that. All right.
If you were going to play Langford as a key forward, who are you dropping?
That's a very good point. Yeah, it would be Archie. Yeah.
But
all right, Archie May. I've loved what I've seen for him. Yeah, I understand. A 6.
Yeah, I agree with that. A 6.
All right, and a toughie, but it's Jai Menzies.
I'm glad Jono seems to have left the chat because Jono's his number 1 fan.
He just saw that Nick Martin was in the mids and left.
3 there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I think we've done a pretty good job, to be quite honest, with the forwards. I do. I really think, and I think there's a lot, now you're seeing them all listed there, I think there's a lot to work with, Hume. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we've just got one category left to talk about, and which one is that?
That'd be the ruckman.
Hume? Yes.
Smaller list. I think
very small list, so we'll be able to punch through them. Give me 1 second. I'm very proud of how I've managed this because it is much more complicated than what it looks. So, all right, let me get rucks up. Oh, no, see, I absolutely 100% jinxed myself with that. 1 second, guys. Okay. Are there any questions that are coming up, Hume, that you want to tackle?
No, most people are just doing a pretty good job with their ratings.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. If anyone's got a question, just jump on and chuck it on. While Fiona's sorting out the technical issues, I can have a crack at answering it.
Yep. I think Jack's got a bit of a comment about the
I think
whole.
he's going to talk about the ruckman situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's going to be a different. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting conversation. Yeah, go ahead, James. You've got a question. Type it in.
Is he being facetious here? Our friend of the pod, James.
I mean, we're doing our owned on the stat Q&A. I don't know whether it's a question he had planned for our Q&A on Sunday night, but
right.
I can answer it twice. I can get my answer tonight and get John's answers on Sunday.
Oh, that's great. That's beautiful.
Perkins' role has to be some sort of half forward, maybe stints in the middle, one or two centre bounces a quarter to get him involved, but he's looked best when he's that lead up for. I think his best this year was when he was playing as the deepest forward. The problem is you've got a lot of players who can play best as the deepest forward, but that's when I've liked his game the most because he gets sort of that fourth tall matchup, and I think that's when he can excel. So I think at the moment that's where I'd play him.
Jeremy, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you so very much. I am pretty proud of myself getting this whole live updating down packed. All right, it's the ruck times. Let's go. Sam Draper, who played 5 games only so far.
On what we saw, that's the best 5 games Sam Draper's ever played as a consecutive unit.
Good point.
His performance against Melbourne, against Gawn, was outstanding, and then it kills you that he went down. If he'd kept going with that performance for the entirety of this year, there'd be no question about us holding on to him. I think the injury
I think about 8.5
has come into that. Yeah, I think he's an 8 for what he produced. But it might also be the last time that we're talking about Sam Draper as an Essendon player.
So yeah, we better give him a nice solid 8. All right, Toddy Goldstein, what are we giving him? He's been great.
We're grading on a curve by age. We're talking a 13 or something, but except 7.
7. Yeah.
What can you expect from the guy? He's put in immense effort. I think some of his around the ground work and getting involved in transition has been fantastic. But obviously,
better than I expected anyway.
Yeah, I think definitely a 7.
Brian, unfortunately, only managed 4 games. Was it enough to give him a 6, 5?
5 to 6. Again, who are we talking about? How many Nick Bryan moments have stuck with you from this year?
Yeah, not mine. Personally, I'm still unconvinced on him, but this guy might have something to do with it because I was so very impressed. We are rating him off 1 game, so
yeah, and it's hard too because all the media this week's been about Luke Jackson playing the greatest game ever by a Fremantle Docker. Not really taking into account the fact he was playing up against a 19-year-old first gamer. I probably could look good against a 19-year-old first gamer. Probably not. The way Virgo tackles, I'd probably be down after the first 5 minutes.
What does that give him as a rating then?
Yeah, I think 6. Like his game, he's played 1 game. I'm hoping that Brad, for all that Brad Scott doesn't play the kids talk, other than Lewis Hayes, who went down and couldn't play the next game after injury, every player he's brought in has had a second game. He's never brought a player in
Such a good
for
point.
their first game. Never brought a player in for their first game, and they haven't got a second straight away. It's a big challenge to come up against what's his face from Gold Coast, Wits. There's no way. I think we were all talking about once the first 2 went down and Vigo went into the ruck and did quite well in the VFL, and we were thinking, right, when can we get him in? There's no easy challenges at AFL level. You're always coming up against a very good ruckman, a bigger, more experienced ruckman. So you eventually have to play him against someone. So
true, exactly.
But also,
I'm
when you come up against Gold Coast, it's their one wood is their midfield. If you play Vigo against Wits will break the hit out record, and Real probably break the clearance record. It's something
to look forward to anyway. But there you go. We did the ratings, and I think we did a really good job, and it was very actually insightful doing that. But now we are moving on to some fun chat. This is where you get to be Humie's lifeline, and we're not dragging this out. This is Humie's going to be able to lock in. It's called the obscure round. I have scoured the stats websites for the most random, ridiculous, insignificant facts and stats about Essendon this year. And I'm going to see how well Hume does. Now, the preface is
this is hard because I mean, like this. I'm on a show called Don the Stat. Like this is.
I know that's why I had to dig deep.
This is my credibility at stake here.
Well, this is why I had to go onto the black market. I had to go in the dark web, and I had to get crazy ones. And so, chat, you're not allowed. You on a system, no googling. You got to give. You can help Hume with answers, but ultimately he's got to lock in his final answer, or else he doesn't get the tick from me. All right. So we won't drag it out. But are you ready for it, Hume? I'm starting with a pretty easy one, which I think you're going to get, just to give you an illusion of ease.
This is the challenge. You've said that now, and now if I screw this up, I'm gonna be on tilt for the rest of the evening. But here we go.
All right. Before I start, Moby, big love to you, my friend. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. What stat is Essendon leading the entire competition for, on average? So the total average. What are we leading?
It's going to be a bad one. Is it leading has been like high? Because I think disposals per inside 50, we're going to be 18th. So is that the sort of area that I'm looking in? Disposals per goal, I think Chapper B's got a pretty good guess there.
All right.
I'm going to lock it. I actually think that's a good shout there, Sharby Joe. I'm going to back you in then. Is he right?
Oh, okay. All right, you're backing in Joe. All right, well, I'll give you the number. So the total average of this metric is 386.8. Does that change anything in your mind?
6.8. That sounds like meters gained or something. That sounds like.
I'm being a nice host and letting you ask if you want to change.
Is that disposal? Is that just disposals? Like highest average disposals? I've got. You talked me into thinking this was going to be obscure things, and it's like the most basic stat in football.
Well, I also think it was trying to do a bit of a mind game. I was trying to get you thinking outside.
You've mind screwed me here, Fiona. So clearly, you've got in my head already.
Very good, Moby.
Well, that too.
That is elite from you, my friend. All right, next one. What stat is Elijah Sardis above average in?
Clearances.
And this is not this year.
Ding, ding, ding. Year. Oh, okay, there you go.
Oh, no, this is not just this year. Yeah. This is in general. But yes, all right, they get harder. Don't you worry about that. In that same vein, what stat is Jai Caldwell rated elite in?
Contested ball. Hold on, I won't lock that in, Eddie. I will.
You tell me when you've locked your final answer in.
Well, I want to see some help from the chat.
That's also very funny. Well done. Very, very good.
They actually play finals.
As in the 386 number.
So what was? Sorry. Say again. What was Jai Caldwell elite?
What stat is Jai Caldwell rated elite in? 10 application.
Maybe tackles.
Shiny arms. Hotness.
I mean,
that's a tick in line.
You want to find out what tanning solution that Jai uses, because you want to invest in it, because he's obviously he's probably propping up that company.
Got a shark tank with that shit.
Yeah. Oh, tackles. Yeah, tackles is a good shout. Tackles or contested ball. I don't think it's meters gained. The handball's too much for it to be meters gained. I'm going to go. Jack is insistent it's tackles. So if it is tackles, and hopefully Jack hasn't Googled this, because we are working on the honour system.
Honour system chat.
Jack is insistent it's tackles, so we're going to go with Jack, because I think he'll have a conniption if I don't go with tackles.
All right. Ding, ding, ding. The chat has helped you out there. Jack, promise you're not Googling. All right, next. True or false? Andy McGrath is rated below average for tackles per season. Is that true or false?
Season.
Yeah. For Andrew McGrath, small defender. Is that true or false?
What's the chat? Let's say the chat.
Oh, Jack's not coming at you with anything for this one.
No, he's not helping me now. He helped me out with the last one.
But he's honest. I love your honesty. Jeremy's got an idea.
I want to believe it's false, but it could be true.
That is the game.
I know. Those are the two options. There's no third option. I'm going to say true, but I'm hoping that I'm wrong.
Ding, ding, ding. You are correct. It is true. And I put it in this list because I wanted it to be wrong and I thought that's crazy, but it is true. All right, the next one. What is the only year that Mason Redman has not registered a clearance? So obviously, when I say clearance, obviously a stoppage. Now, he debuted in 2016. He has only registered 1 year that he has not had even one clearance. What year is that?
Isn't that why you're asking it? Because he...
this
year, isn't it?
Not giving you anything away. But he debuted in 2016, so that's from 2016.
I haven't dug that deep into the stats.
That's why this is the obscure round.
Yeah, this is the obscure round. This is good. This is like hard quiz. This has become hard quiz.
Yeah,
you got more.
So what's the only year? Obviously, there's stoppage clearances. And the's been only 1 year.
He sent a bounce in round one, didn't he?
He did too. So there could have been a clearance in there, centre clearance too. So.
I feel like you're asking me because it's this year. I feel like that's the way you're thinking. So I'm going to say this year.
Final answer?
That's my ultimate response, yes.
Okay. That's the first blip. It is not this year. It is 2017. And I didn't actually write down how many games he played that year, but it was a fair chunk. And I thought that was a good little one. All right.
Well, I'll have to start boning up on my decades old stats now, just for the next time this happens.
Yeah, exactly. All right, put you on notice. All right, the next one. What is the only year, in the same vein as the last question, what is the only year that Matt Guelphy has not kicked a single goal despite playing 11 games in that year? So he debuted in 2018, and there is only 1 year that Matt Guelphy has not kicked a single goal despite having played 11 games.
I'm trying to think because he's one of those players that spend time everywhere, right? He spent time back, he spent time forward.
Exactly. Which is why it was an obscure.
Obviously, it wasn't last year, wasn't this year, wasn't the year before. Like he's been playing forward for the last 3 or 4 years, I feel like. I want to say the COVID year. I want to say 2020.
Ding, ding, ding. Correct.
I'm proud of that get. That's a good get.
That was I quite liked how you worked back on that. You could all read me, Adam. Oh, no. Do I not have a poker face? All right, the next question, I'm covering my face. I'm too honest for my own good. All right.
Not the camera. Just us in the blind.
You got 3 left, Hume. All right. How many games have our 11 debutants combined for in 2025?
All right. Let's work this out. All right.
Oh, my God. He's actually going to do the math.
We're going to count these. Kako's played 14. Edwards played 2. That's 16. Sard played, you said it. You said 5. So 21. Hayes, 22. All right. Who else have I got? Hayes. Okay, next. Daywicks has played 5. So that's 27. Clark has played 4, 31. Johnson's played 3, that's 34. Luwale's played 3, that's 37. May and Blackerson have played 2 each, that's 41. Vigo's played 41, that's 42. Am I missing it? Have I missed anyone, chat? Have I missed anyone? Did I not say one of the players? I need one more. Who else debuted this year?
All right, final guess. What are you locking in?
No, I said Hayes. I'm pretty sure I said Hayes. I'm gonna say 42. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy number.
Ta-da! That is incorrect. The correct number is 39. Moby, be honest. Did you Google that? Because Moby was spot on. He said 39. Did you Google that, or did you just guess that? You were very close, Hume. But
I think that's a really good. I had Jono. I had Clark as one more game than Johnson. Thank you very much if you were listening. I
did
did know that.
Yeah, you jumped too. Yep, exactly. All right.
Anyway.
Next, which player has the third most goals for this year?
James actually gave this away in the chat earlier when we were talking about this player. It's Archie Perkins.
Damn you, James. All right, correct. Now, this is probably my favourite one, actually, mainly because it took me probably 12 minutes to go through every single player, and there's probably an easier way to do it, but I'm not a stat genius like you, and I did it manually. That's why I love it. Okay, last one. Name me 3 players who have given away more frees than they have gotten.
Ooh.
We have 13 in total who have given away more frees than they've actually gotten. I have written them all down.
Definitely.
You only have to give me 3.
Jane Laverty will be one. He'll give me. He's a definite. Jackson Pryor strikes me as the type that wouldn't get free kicks, but gives them. Maybe not Pryor. Laverty's a lock, I think. Ben Hobbs is a good shout. I feel like Sam Durham's the type that gives away a lot of free kicks. What have I said? Hobbs, Laverty, Hobbs. I want to be Durham. Defenders are going to give away free kicks. I'm trying to think who else would have given away a lot of free kicks. Roberts. There we go. Laverty. What have I said? Laverty, Hobbs, and Roberts.
Okay, you're looking in Laverty.
Oh, no. Take away. Vigo gave away a heap of free kicks in his one game, so I'm going to put him in. Laverty, Vigo, and Hobbs. They're my 3.
All right. Dun-dun, you are incorrect. I was going to give the little clue and at the start and say, when I asked the question, I was going to say we have 13 players, and it would surprise you to know that Archie Roberts is not one of them. Because that's the one we all would expect. Okay, Vigo is also not one of them.
Really?
Oh. Yes, because he got a lot as well. He got as many as he gave in the end.
The Jackson man handled him and he got nothing, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, exactly. So if anybody, I'll list you the players and you tell me which surprises you the most. So the ones who have given, these are the players who have given away more frees than they've actually got it. Mackay, McGrath, Colders, Redmond, Perkins, Gresh, Steele, Laverty is one you got correct, Guelphy, Kako, Menzies, Ridley, Clark. The ones, a lot of the players you mentioned had like Hobbs definitely has like 3-4-3 against. So obviously that cancels each other out. Yeah. So the most is Mackay. He's got an 8, given 11 away.
It doesn't surprise me. I think his early form where he was really struggling.
Yes.
If defenders aren't on their game, they tend to give away a lot of free kicks. I'm not surprised by that. I think one problem is Paco. You expect a small forward to get more free kicks than he does. I guess you got to be wearing brown and gold to get free kicks as a small forward. I guess the umpires feel sorry for you for having to wear that terrible, terrible uniform.
True. Well, Jimmy, you got 6 out of 9, and I think that's pretty darn impressive given the effort I put into finding these obscure, ridiculous questions. So
please get degrees.
Yeah, true. And look, I did use a little bit of the friend AI who I've never used before as help. So there is a high chance that some of these have been incorrect. All right, moving on to the final segment. Let's see how many we can get through in, let's say, in the next 15 minutes, then we'll wrap things up. This game, chat, you can also help too. This game is called, well, it doesn't really have a name, but basically the premise is I am going to give you some less obvious Marvel characters. I'm going to give you their strengths and weaknesses, and you're going to give me the most likened current Essendon player to them. So
I think Marvelous surely this is Marvelous. The name of the game is Marvelous.
Oh my God. See? Exactly. See, this is what you don't get from AI. The gold like that. All right, this is the Marvelous round. We are starting, and I've gone with the less obvious Marvel characters just for something different. So the first one is Black Panther. His strengths are agility, speed, endurance. He has Olympic-level athleticism. He's an expert in physics and engineering. He's a brilliant tactician, highly respected leader. His weaknesses, he feels a sense of duty, which can be a burden. Without his one weapon, a heart-shaped herb, whatever the flippity fuck that is, if he loses it, he loses all superhuman traits, and he avoids actions that compromise his code. Chat, Huey, who most like Black Panther?
At the start, when you were describing him, I was thinking Sam Durham, and then you got to the bit where he studied.
First instinct.
Yeah, and then you got to the bit where he said he studied physics. I'm not sure Sam Durham can spell physics. So, this is hard. Chat, any
Jack
help?
is pretty strong.
Yeah. He seems pretty switched on. I'm sure he could spell physics.
Yeah, true. Dersma could definitely do physics. That's a great shout. Shake a snake.
Elite tactician. Do we have any? Doesn't that disqualify most of our list with the way they play?
Yes, most AFL lists. Who you got?
I do like Dersma as a shout there. I'm not sure if that's Scott or Grant there. Posting there. Yeah, I think Dersma is a shout because he does. He's elite in terms of knowing where he needs to go. I think they don't have physics
anymore. Moby, my friend, what do you want tonight? You are coming out with them. All right, that was good. The next one.
I'm gonna go with Scott Shout and Dersma.
All right. Keep in mind, chat, I don't watch Marvel movies. I don't know anything about them. So this was an education for me too. The next one is Ant-Man. His strengths: elite evasion skills. Can make himself small but still strong. He's a talented thief. Arguably whether that's a weakness or a strength. He's a quick thinker under pressure, and he has a strong moral compass. His weaknesses are overwhelmed in direct combat. He's one-dimensional, so if his outfit gets damaged, he loses all power. And he struggles to be trusted by others.
This is Andy McGrath, isn't it? There was not everything. He's evasive through traffic and
he's pretty strong. I reckon he's pretty strong.
I know everyone's getting stuck into him for not being able to tackle a rampaging Pat Voss from a standing start. But
yeah, true.
He's strong. I think,
and he's overwhelmed in direct combat. Like in direct combat, like when he's in a circle, like when he's surrounded. That's good.
Exactly, surrounded on all sides, and he tries to work his way out, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Oh, I reckon that's a great one, actually. And to be honest, I haven't done this exercise myself, so I'm doing it as you're doing it. Great one. All right, the next one is Wolverine. Now, Wolverine, obviously, he's one of the more obvious ones, but I just like that name, Wolverine, so I've gone with it. All right, his strengths, obvious ones: peak physical strength, high pain tolerance, so recovers quickly, has trained in martial arts and military tactics, hard to be ambushed, and mentally resilient. His weaknesses: prone to extreme rage, lack of control, reluctant to be a leader, has heavy broad bones, which makes him heavy and potentially harder, not as great a runner, possibly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who you got for Wolverine, everyone?
The pain tolerance had me thinking Will Setterfield, especially given last week. I think most of the qualities there, people are saying Durham. I think Roberts. I've got Archie Roberts. I know he's not quite got the build yet, but I look at Archie Roberts as a face that would do sideburns really well.
And what? I look at Archie Roberts.
You can do an AI-generated Archie Roberts sideburns picture. I would appreciate that.
Hey Paul from the Hoops crew. I assume it's Paul behind there. So lovely to have you with us tonight. For those of you who don't know, the Hoops crew, a wonderful Geelong channel. You can absolutely nominate Tom Atkins from Geelong. That is a great shout. He absolutely, mentally resilient is one of the strengths that absolutely stand out for me. And I would say that who did you say on that? Archie Roberts, mentally resilient. Yeah. So I think that's a good one.
Leadership. Reluctant. Yep. I've talked about not announcing players as future captains. So I guess there's a bit of reluctance on my part for him to be a captain leader, but he's showing a bit of that. So yeah. Anyway.
All right, next one. The next one I have got here is Doctor Strange. Very obscure, but let's go through him. Okay, his strengths. He's a genius-level intellect. He has a photographic memory. Photographic memory, can alter perceptions and control his environments well. He gives the illusion of time manipulation, stopping time. He's a leader and protector. His weaknesses include he requires 100% concentration and focus. If caught off guard, he can be hurt. He's vulnerable to more powerful, stronger influences, and his pride and ego can sometimes sabotage his progress.
I think James has got the right idea with merit in Doctor Strange. It's not a bad idea. Martin was the one. Martin was the one I was thinking of originally. Richard. I think yes, it's Nick Martin or Zach Merritt really. With some of especially the early descriptions he went there. I'm gonna go Nick.
Okay.
Nick also looks a bit like Nick's also got a bit of Doctor Strange. Looking
true,
yeah,
in a great way, in the best way.
Yeah,
all right, lucky last. Are you ready for your lucky last chat and Hume?
Let's do it.
All right, I've picked one of the last ones on the list. Don't know who this is or what he does, but it's Lockie. I don't know if these are good. By the way, chat, I have all the ones I've picked. Are they good?
I like how you're saying these are all obscure ones, and these all have basically multiple movies about them.
Really? You know why I say obscure?
Yeah.
Because when I typed in who are the most popular Marvel characters, these ones all came up at the end of the list. So anyway, All right, Lockie. His strengths: he can manipulate weaker minds. He's a master strategist, resistant to injury and fatigue, and recovers fast from injury and fatigue. His weaknesses: overconfident and struggles with teamwork.
This is a tough one. There's no one good.
Ending it high.
This is a really tough one. Who's a trickster? Do we have any tricky players? I don't know.
All the players like to say that kind of Redman.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, nerds. What did I call him? Lockie? Isn't his name Lockie? How do you pronounce this?
It's like saying low key. But you say it quicker.
Loki. Oh, Loki. Apologies to my...
Oh, Draper. Yep. Absolutely.
Nerds.
Draper. 100%, Richard. Great call. Love it.
Oh, this is not about... Matthew's had some good calls tonight.
Yeah.
I mean...
That's not a bad shout as well.
Mean, but true. All right, you're locking in Drapes. Are ya?
Yep, let's do it.
All righty. Well, that ends the marvellous round. I hope that was something a little bit different for you all and for you, Hume, just to change things up. And I think that about wraps us up for tonight. I think, hey, Muzzy, how are you? Hope you're well. I think we've kind of dissected where we're at and had some fun along the way and talked specifics about players, and hopefully you've given everybody a different perspective of where we're at. I know other podcasts, and of course your podcast on the stat is going to go have a review or a rundown or something like that. So look forward to hearing that. Last words before I let you go and give you a huge thank you for your time and your presence tonight.
Look, this was a lot of fun. I was really chuffed that you asked me to do this. I'm not usually, as I said, it's not really about. I'm not often on screen. I'm on screen when I'm recording, but I'm not sending it out.
We just see your voice.
And I have made a really big effort not to keep touching my face, which I tend to. I was actually on the Sash last year doing something on video, and I wasn't really paying attention to how I was doing with my hands. It's kind of like that Ricky Bobby thing where what do you do with your hands? And I'm constantly touching my face, and I look like a drug addict. So hopefully I haven't looked like a drug addict tonight, even if some of my opinions may seem a bit drug-induced. No, it's been a fantastic night. Fantastic to interact with the chat. Fantastic to spend time with you. And again, I said at the start, this is fantastic work that you are doing. I think the Essendon, we get to laugh at some of the other fan communities and the way they react to things. I think the Essendon fan community, especially given what we have been through, are a pretty resilient lot and a pretty good lot. There's not a lot of bad eggs in the Essendon fan community, and what you're doing with this is fantastic in providing another space for people to come together and share their views. And I really like how I think the best thing about what you've done is how you've encouraged people to come on and share their opinions, because those of us who do this and put out our opinions, we're just like everyone else. We're not special because we put out content. We're just like every other fan, and having opinions and wanting to share them. And I think what you've done in providing a space where people feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and how they feel about the Bombers, I think has been top notch. So yeah, I'm really proud of what you put together. Thanks you for having me involved in it.
Thank you so much for those wonderful words, Hume. It's been an absolute honour, and it's when we finally reach that day where we can win a final or even a grand final, the journey, we're going to look back on this journey and where we started. And I feel like it's meant to be that I started this channel when I did, because I feel like we are not rebuilding, but rebuilding, wink, wink. And we're sharing the highs and lows together. And I think what I'm really proud of about our Essendon community, and the one that I've certainly cultivated on Twitter and everywhere else, and all the wonderful podcasts and content creators, is that we are, for the most part, fairly measured, because we are familiar with pain and suffering and letdown, and we still turn up and show up and pay our memberships and turn up to games and watch, and are just as probably the most dedicated, or one of the most dedicated supporter bases. But we generally can be pretty measured, and even if we disagree in opinions, we can banter it out, pardon the pun. We can banter it out and still respect each other at the end of the day. And that's what I wanted to provide, a space basically in a world that's turned, in our ears, or, mainly on our phones. I wanted to provide more of a face-to-face, safe space for people to actually come on and do that, and a community, and, somewhere where we can all come and obviously group therapy. Group therapy at yes, as Scotty, absolutely, you absolutely nailed it. Your therapist says totally agrees. Hoops, Paul, I mean, you are not welcome to participate in this conversation because you don't know pain. But I could not. Everyone who knows me knows that if Essendon didn't exist, it's not a second team, but if Essendon didn't exist, Geelong would be my team. I absolutely love Geelong, and I have absolute admiration for you. But no, you do not pain. You do not pain.
Paul, I don't have admiration for Geelong. I'm just sick of you. Can you guys just please hurry up and be bad like the rest of us for once? I'm getting pretty sick of it.
It's really not fair. It's really, really not fair. But thank you, Hume. You're an absolute asset. You teach me things every time I listen to the podcast. You both do. I'm a lot of it. Some of it goes over my head. Sometimes I have to pause and go back 10 seconds and hear it again. But I listen and I learn, and I absolutely love it. For those of you again who have not listened, absolutely listen. You will be smarter for it. Don the Studies, the podcast, they have a plethora of content that they put out. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour. Chat, you've been absolutely incredible and wonderful. If you haven't, please subscribe, send it to a friend, send it to a family member, and let's just keep this community humming along and have some fun along the way. Not sure what our other content I'm going to be putting out for this week. Maybe one or two other things, but Hume, just quickly, when and what is the next thing coming from Don the Stat?
Yeah, so we've got our Patreon Q&A happening on Sunday night. So if you have enjoyed listening to me, and I'm not sure why you would, but anyway, we do that with our patrons live. So and then we record that and put that out. So that'll be out Sunday night. If you want to jump on and ask questions for myself and Jono, you can sign up to the Patreon. There is a free trial if you want to just give us a taste for 7 days. You can sign up to that, and then we'll be back on Thursday night for our regular preview of the Gold Coast game.
Wonderful. Sounds amazing. Everybody take care. Stay well. Hume, do you want to say what you always say at the end of your podcast, your famous line, please?
Well, it's stuck in my head. I nearly use it at schoup when I'm teaching classes and I'm wrapping up classes.
Don't hit us.
It was I shouldn't jump into a story now because we're almost done. Anyway, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And as always, stay safe and go Dons.
Bye, everyone.